And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Hello there. This is your Alaska Marine Weather Outlook, and I'm National Weather Service Meteorologist Peter Chan on this Saturday, August 23rd, 2025. And starting with the sea ice, we still have a bit of pack ice located in the Beaufort Sea, especially off the coastline there between Utqiagvik and Kaktovik, and the late summer melt-off just continues. We are going to see, though, a fair amount of precipitation working its way across the western and central interior, and a little cooler conditions with temperatures mainly in the 30s across the Arctic coast, but areas around Kotzebue and especially the Seward Peninsula, Norton Sound, picking up some heavier rainfall, at least steadier periods of light to moderate rain that are really going to add up over the next few days. So look for wet and breezy conditions. The higher surf that's been occurring from the Bering Strait down along Norton Sound, lower Yukon coast. The high surf advisory has been allowed to expire this Saturday late afternoon, but it will remain choppy out there, and we have a couple of other systems coming up. So the satellite image still shows this low pressure in the North Pacific south of the Gulf, but here in the Panhandle, the sun has come out, and with this weak ridging in place, it's going to be quite warm, late summer weather here for Sunday and Monday afternoon. Temperatures 70s to around 80 degrees. Heat advisory for Prince of Wales Island and Ketchikan, Metlakatla, and Hyder. Back out to the west, we've had low pressure work its way on up here into the Bering Strait region, and we have this swath of clouds here. This is essentially an atmospheric river. We also have moisture coming up from the North Pacific by this route ahead of this feed. But nevertheless, there is a front that's stalled out just north of the Alaska range, so some of the steadier rain is going to be along the Yukon River Valley. And as I said, number of locations, 2-3 inches of rain very easily. A few spots will get 4 or 5 inches because of any terrain enhancement like Nulato Hills and so forth. But along areas of the west coast, expect breezy conditions at times, along with periods of at least light to moderate rain. And here late, or as we get into Sunday afternoon, here's that stationary front. Yet another wave of low pressure is going to cross the central and western Aleutians, and that'll be moving up toward Nome by Monday afternoon. We still have ridging out here over the northern Pacific into the Gulf, and that's going to benefit the Panhandle, bringing some lighter winds and sunshine and warmer temperatures to most of the southeast. On Monday, still that ridge holding place, so again, another warm and mainly sunny day for the Panhandle, southeast parts of the state, but rainy on the interior and along areas of the west coast, and there's yet another low pressure wave that's going to develop and come northeastward and impact Kuskokwim, Bristol Bay, the southwest coast, and then spreading more wind and rain across the southwest interior. So active weather pattern. These are the hints of the early fall storms we start to see at this time of year. So looking at the inner channels of the Panhandle, winds are going to be south 10 knots, Lynn Canal waves a foot or two, but north-northwest winds 10 knots, waves a foot or two from Stevens Passage down into Dixon Entrance. South of Sitka, northwest winds 15 knots off of Craig, 4 or 5 foot waves, and then generally west winds 10 knots from Sitka outside of Cross Sound to Yakutat and Cape Suckling with 3 to 4 foot waves. Monday, kind of a mixed bag of winds in the inner channel, south winds 10 knots, waves a foot or two at best there for Lynn Canal, variable winds around 5 knots, waves less than 2 feet for Stevens Passage. Northwest winds to 15 knots, Dixon Entrance, 2 to 3 foot waves. And then outside of Cross Sound down to off of Craig, 15 to near 20 knot northwest winds. And those winds drop off to 10 knots as you get up toward Yakutat and Cape Suckling. Light variable winds for Sunday, Prince William Sound outside of Hinchinbrook Entrance along the Kenai coast, variable at 10 knots, waves generally just a foot or two Prince William Sound, maybe 2-3 feet along the Kenai coast. Stronger winds, little stronger winds, southeast winds to 20 knots here, Kennedy Entrance. And as you get off of Anchor Point, Middle and Upper Cook Inlet, look for south winds up to 25 knots with waves easily 3 to 4 feet. And then on Monday, still variable winds. We have that ridge of high pressure nudged right up, kind of the end of it, right up here into Prince William Sound. So 10 knot variable winds, Prince William Sound, Hinchinbrook Entrance, Kayak Island, eastern Kenai coast. But within the Cook Inlet, southeast winds to 20 knots here in lower Cook Inlet, and then south winds of 20 knots going up the length of the inlet with waves 4 to 5 feet. Now on Sunday, winds will be south-southwest, 15 knots around Kodiak Island, Shelikof Strait with waves just a few feet. As we trail out along the Alaska Peninsula, either side just variable winds at 10 knots, waves a couple of feet on the North Pacific side. Little choppier, maybe 4 or 5 feet there on the Bering side. And then Monday, we have another low and frontal wave that'll be increasing winds. South winds 15 knots, Shelikof Strait, east side of Kodiak Island. But as we go down along the peninsula, look for south winds turning more south-southeasterly, 25 to 30 knots, especially there north of Cold Bay. Waves will be building 6-7 feet there either side Cold Bay and False Pass. And then the Aleutians for Sunday, generally southerly component to the wind, around 20-25 knots on Alaska to Nikolsky, but Atka to Adak, we're looking at winds 30 knots or so, maybe even 35 knots, south-southeast of Kiska and west-southwest of Adak. And then for Monday, winds are going to be out of the south-southwest to 30 knots over the eastern Aleutians, being pulled there by this frontal system that's going to be draped in this region as that low pressure tracks up toward Nome. So ahead of it, there's a belt of some stronger winds in the eastern Aleutians, and then turning more west-northwesterly, falling off to 15 knots there west of Adak. Along the southwest coast Sunday, still some brisk winds. Lower Yukon coast up into Norton Sound, look for southwest winds 20 to 25 knots, waves 4 to 5 feet. A southwest wind of 15 to 20 knots into Bristol and Kuskokwim Bay, waves 4 to 6 feet there, and then south winds to 25 knots along the Pribilovs with waves running 8 to 9 feet around St. Paul, St. George. On Monday, there will be a stronger wind field as the low pressure center takes a track up into this region, so ahead of the front, we find strongest winds, 35 knot southerly gales into Kuskokwim Bay, so this is going to cause some elevated surf. And we also have periods of rain coming down pretty steadily, so that's going to make for very wet conditions along the southwest coast. 30 knot southwest winds, the Pribilovs, with waves as high as 15 feet there, St. Paul and St. George. This is going to cause southeast winds, kind of an offshore flow here from the south side of Norton Sound, 15 to 20 knots along the upper half of the Yukon coastline. And then through the Bering Strait, strongest winds will be off of Wales, Port Clarence, northeast winds to 25 knots. On the other, by the time you get to the north side of St. Lawrence Island, waves could be as high as 6 to 8 feet, especially toward Gamble. As we come up the lower Chukchi winds do stay northerly and fall off to 10 knots off of Cape Lisburne, but then turn westerly, 15 knots Wainwright through Prudhoe Bay, picking up to westerly winds of 25 knots there at Kaktovik. And then on Monday, look for southwest to west winds, 10 to 15 knots from Kaktovik down through Wainwright, and then those winds turn back north and even northeasterly through the lower Chukchi Sea and the Bering Strait, northeast winds of 20 knots. Strongest there on the north side of St. Lawrence around Gamble, 25 knot northeasterly winds with waves there as high as 6 to 7 feet on Monday.